All right, I thought it would be helpful to run through the list of external structures so that you could review at home. I'm going to go down the list from top to bottom, so if you follow along on your list, you should find that we're going to cover each of them that you need to know for the external part of the practical. The first structure, the corpus callosum, I'm actually going to wait to discuss until we look at the internal structure view. Similarly, the dura mater is something that we can't see. It's been removed and as part of the preparation for our dissection. The one that we can see, though, is the pia mater. It actually is what makes the surface of the brain shiny. It's that thin membranous layer that actually hugs the surface of the brain. Going to the posterior part, we can see the spinal cord extending just beyond the cerebellum. Next, we're going to look at the pons, so we're going to have to look at the ventral surface of the brain. This enlargement right here would constitute the region that we would call the pons. The next pair, gyrus and sulcus, go together. Gyrus is a generic term, so if I pointed to any raised area of the brain, you can see these kind of ridges that are folded up. That would be a gyrus. Gyri would be plural of that. The ridges end in these little grooves, and this would be a sulcus. Any dark area with these blood vessels within it would be a sulcus. Remember, sulci is the plural for sulcus. Turning back over to the ventral surface, there is a region right here where the pituitary would have attached. That's the infundibulum. The medulla oblongata is this region that is just posterior to where we had the pons. So this area right here would be the medulla oblongata. The cerebrum is a general region of the brain. Remember that it's divided into two major halves, whereas the cerebellum is a single part, and you can see that it is posterior to the cerebrum, and it was named because it looked like a small brain. Going back to the ventral view, we have the olfactory bulbs. You can see this one is nice and intact. This one's a little distorted. These olfactory bulbs connect to the olfactory tract. That's a white fiber tract that's carrying a sense of smell back to the rest of the brain. We have the optic nerve, which is actually mostly missing in this subject. The optic nerve would have gone anteriorly to the eyes. Where it crossed over to form an X shape, we have this middle region here, which would be the optic chiasm. And then this portion would be the optic tract. Remember that in the central nervous system, we don't have nerves per se. Any bundle of axons that are myelinated would be the tract, and that's the optic tract. We have one example of the oculomotor nerve right here on the peduncle. So here's one of the olfactory nerves. To see the superior and inferior colliculus, we'll have to flip back over to the dorsal view and actually gently pull apart the cerebrum from the cerebellum. You can see two pairs of knob-like structures. They're collectively the corpora quadrigemina, but these two right here are the superior and these two are the inferior colliculi. Going back to our ventral view, these two structures right here would be the mammillary bodies. This line that goes alongside the olfactory tract, and here's the other side of it here, goes alongside the olfactory tract. This is the rhinal fissure. Rhinal refers to nose, olfactory refers to the sense of smell, so it makes sense that these two are alongside one another. Next, we're going to look at the different lobes of the cerebrum. We have this frontal region, which is the frontal lobes. We have this region here at the top of the brain. These are the parietal lobes. Then we have a side view where we would have the temporal lobes. And then we have this rearmost view, and this would show us the occipital lobes. The two halves of the brain are separated by the longitudinal cerebral fissure. Going across, making across, is the cruciate fissure, and actually that's where the term cruciate comes from, because it makes a cross that goes across the brain. Going back to the ventral view, we have the cerebral peduncles, there and there. And then finally, we can show ourselves the posterior choroid plexus. If we separate gently the cerebellum from the cerebrum, this kind of brownish mass of tissue at the roof of the fourth ventricle would be our posterior choroid plexus.